Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the state drought throwing cold water on a California staple.
With the water prices going up continually and the water levels going down, I thought, well, I know it's not much, but in the long run, if more people do it, we'll save the earth.
The unusual business giving homeowners peace of mind for their backyard swimming pools.
And come July 1st, about 500,000 workers in San Diego County will get paid sick leave. I'm Peggy Pico with who's eligible and the impact on local businesses. Then, how a new agreement between San Diego County, Imperial County, and Baja, Mexico will help track and treat people with tuberculosis.
The gray area is the in-between between shooting and fighting.
Training in hand-to-hand combat, the street fighting technique offering options for officers. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. The Boston Marathon bomber speaks for the first time during his formal death sentence today in court, apologizing to the victims and their families for the attack that killed 3 people and wounded 260 others. After hearing statements from 24 survivors and relatives, Johar Tsarnaev told them, quote, "I am sorry for the lives I've taken and for the suffering that I've caused you." The judge told the 21-year-old he will be remembered for murdering and maiming innocent people. More reaction to the death sentence tonight on the PBS NewsHour. That starts at 7. A fire is burning out of control near Lake Tahoe. Lightning sparked the fire last week. It's burned 26 square miles so far. One firefighter received a heat-related injury. As you can see, air tankers and helicopters help firefighters battle flames near the Nevada border. Neighbors there are on standby for possible evacuations. It's been a busy fire season. High temperatures, dry vegetation from the drought are a reminder California and other western states may face an intense fire season. CAL FIRE says more than 4,000 firefighters are on the lines of 7 major wildfires from Lake Tahoe to San Bernardino County, where the Lake Fire has burned more than 18,000 acres since it started 1 week ago.
Moving into July, it really looks like that the Central Sierra as well as the Central Coast and Southern California are the areas that the likelihood for large and wildfires will continue. And with these triple-digit temperatures that we've been seeing, a little bit of wind, these are the perfect combinations for wildfires to burn very rapidly like we saw last week.
State fire officials are also gearing up with extra workers who would have been off duty this week. Running dry, California's drought has led some business owners to get creative. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser shows us an unusual drought entrepreneur helping folks save water with their swimming pools.
Most backyard swimming pools hold 20,000 gallons of water. That's about as much water as an average San Diegan uses in a year. Bruce Wettstein's company, Pool Services Technologies, has seen big business by helping homeowners avoid dumping all of that water.
So what we do is we actually take the water that's already in an existing swimming pool, and as opposed to doing a complete drain and refill, whereas the pool owner would dump this 20,000 gallons down the drain and purchase another 20,000 gallons, we can clarify this to a better quality than what comes out of the tap and save 85% or better of this existing pool water.
Pool owners are supposed to empty and refill their pools every 5 to 7 years to prevent mineral buildup. Instead, Pool Services Technologies pumps water into a rig, cleans it, and puts it back into the pool. Douglas Card has owned his Oceanside home and its pool for 2 years. He paid Wettstein $550 to recycle his pool water.
The drought was my biggest concern. With the water prices going up continually and the water levels going down, I thought, well, I know it's not much, but in the long run, if more people do it, we'll save the earth.
Pool Services Technologies started 6 years ago. Since the drought began, business has taken off. Wettstein says they're completely booked through October.
Initially, this drought wasn't a factor, and we just didn't think it was prudent to be dumping so much water, even before the awareness was increased. We're thankful that people have chosen us as an option.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
You can find more stories on California's drought and see how other folks are saving water in our special section, Running Dry, online anytime at kpbs.org/drought. Would you vote to raise taxes, issue bonds, or eliminate the city's free trash pickup? These are some of the options San Diego is considering to address billions in needed improvements to streets, sidewalks, and fire stations. A new report from the independent budget analyst says raising the sales tax 0.25% would bring in an additional $68 million, and repealing free tax pickup would add another $32 million each year. It also suggested issuing $500 million in bonds. They may be too cool for school, but the kids who ditch class are a problem for classrooms in San Diego County. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler says supervisors want to fight truancy by putting more cops on those campuses.
Many schools located within a city have officers from that city's police department on campus to help fight truancy. San Diego Unified School District even has its own police force. However, schools in many of San Diego County's unincorporated areas don't have officers on campus. Supervisor Horn says students who have unexcused absences cost school districts a lot of money.
The state's giving you $12,000 per student to keep a kid in class. Obviously, it's an economic boon to the school district. If you have 30 kids that are truant and they're all in class, that's a lot of money.
Horn wants sheriff deputies and probation officers to fill the campus cop gap for schools in unincorporated areas. Sheriff Bill Gore thinks it's a good idea and says the officers can do more than police work.
These cops, for example, on high school campuses, they're not walking around to thump people on the head. They're there to be there as a resource, as maybe a counselor.
In 90 days, the county will complete a study about how to pay for the officers. Both Gore and Horn say a combination of school district and county funds can pay for the officers. And Horn says he wants to have cops on campus by this fall. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
New numbers on who's crossing the world's busiest border crossing at the San Ysidro port of entry. A new survey shows more than half are from the U.S., and the number of Mexican citizens fell to 26% from 44% in 2011. Crossing for business or work is listed as the main reason, followed by visits to family or friends. The study also found the wait times to walk across have dropped, with the average wait about 25 minutes now. In sickness and in health, California businesses have less than 1 week to prepare for a new state law that says they must offer workers at least 3 paid sick days a year. Peggy Pico finds out how it's being rolled out.
State Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez of San Diego authored the law. It's expected to affect more than 6.5 million workers in California. Joining me with who will benefit here and how local businesses are preparing are my guest, research and policy analyst Robert Nodoff with the Center on Policy Initiatives, and Lori Edwards-Tate, president and CEO of At Your Home Family Care. And Robert, this sick leave law goes into effect in just about a week, actually. So how will the sick leave be accrued?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show, Peggy. So the basic premise behind the bill here is that nobody should really be forced to make the impossible choice of having to take care of themselves or a sick loved one and go to work sick and lose a day's pay, right, as a result of that. And there, as you mentioned, 6.5 million Californians don't have access to a single day of sick leave. And what this allows is those 6.5 million Californians to actually accrue sick leave as they work every 30 hours, they accrue 1 hour of sick leave.
So total all year long, how many do they get then?
It'd be capped out at 3 days max.
3 days per year. Okay, and a CPI report last year found nearly 500,000 or 500,000 workers in San Diego County didn't have access to sick pay. So who does this law actually apply to here, and who's exempt?
Absolutely. So great question. Here locally, again, as you mentioned, there's just under 500,000 folks in San Diego County who don't have access to a single day of earned sick leave. So again, they have to make that impossible choice that I was talking about a little bit earlier. In fact, within that are 44% of all private sector workers, 44% of men and women, 55% of all working Latinos, and we also have 82% of folks in the food services industry. So the folks who are actually touching our food, handling our food, and cooking it when we go out on a Friday night don't have access, as well as 3 out of 4 child care providers.
So part-time per diem workers, but there are some employers that are exempt.
Yes, and the ones who are exempt are the IHSS workers, so the state home care providers, and the governor felt that it was for them to actually negotiate through the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, and Laura, you run a private in-home care business, and one concern is that this law could be a burden for business owners like yourself. What kind of impact will this sick leave law have on your business?
Well, the sick leave law has tremendous impact. And it's a very timely question because we are in the process of implementing strategy to move this agenda forward. First of all, from a financial standpoint, the impact is approximately $30,000 a year starting July 1st. The difficulty is that we have per diem workers in the home, people who like their per diem status except for people who prefer shifts, who may be working for more than one company. The other difficulty is the fact that we have very frail populations of seniors, disabled veterans, and we are very similar to the state-funded IHSS program. So it was kind of disheartening that we, as an industry, which I am in home care, we also have home health, we have hospice, we have allied organizations throughout the state in the thousands, that we were not given a similar consideration given that we serve similar populations.
And how are you going to implement this law with your new employees? What are some ideas that you're doing to prepare for this?
I believe that what we're going to end up doing is doing a data-based type of implementation where the calculations are going to be significant. We are required by law to produce weekly reports for each of our employees, include them in their paychecks. We have to modify how we actually pay people and change the actual payroll stubs. We are also going to need to modify all job descriptions throughout the agency, all of our administrative detail. But my biggest concern, we do have real concerns for employees. We have concerns as businesses, but I think sometimes we lose sight of where certain laws, really belong or not belong.
Sure, sure. And I know you're talking about the patient care, and there's a lot of discussion that could be had on that at some point. I do want to ask Robert, though, about you're working with a group of people to increase sick time even beyond the 3 days a year. Tell us about that.
That's correct. So 3 days is a great start for folks. But again, just this past winter, we had a really nasty flu virus that went around, and a lot of people were susceptible to it. I had coworkers who were out for upwards of 5 days, and the whole purpose for that is, again, 3 days is a very modest start, but there are cities, 20-plus cities across the country, where the bar is really at 5 days, and we believe that San Diego is America's finest city, should definitely at least be at 5 days of sick leave for folks, and allow people the opportunity to, again, stay home when they're ill, because, again, it's great for workers, but it's also great for businesses, and the fact that when you're not sick, when you're actually healthy, you're more productive at work. You don't spread it to other folks. And again, when you're working with people in the public, you don't risk getting them sick as well.
Okay, sadly, we are out of time. There's a lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Robert Nodoff and Lori Edwards-Tate, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A big financial boost today for San Diego Research Institute thanks to Conrad Prebys. It's his largest donation ever, $100 million to the Sanford Burnham Medical Research Institute. The gift brings with it a new name on campus, the Sanford Burnham Prebys Medical Discovery Institute. He hopes his money will speed up discovery of new drugs and therapies for diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's.
The idea that you can reduce the suffering and extend a useful life is pretty heady stuff, and I'm proud to be part of that now.
Prebys has made large donations to many San Diego institutions, including KPBS. Don't mess with the label. A lawsuit over eggs masquerading as California Fresh adds up to a big donation for two of San Diego's largest food banks. Turns out a major egg distributor was sued by the city attorney's office for claiming Iowa eggs were from California farms. As part of the legal settlement, the company will donate more than 200,000 eggs to charity. It's worth $50,000. City Attorney Jan Goldsmith says the lawsuit was a public safety issue.
Because if those are tainted eggs, my family gets sick. And if they've misrepresented they're from California when they're really from the tainted state, we have threat to health and safety. That's why it's important.
The food banks usually get only non-perishable goods, so eggs are a real treat and could actually feed several hundred families a day for up to a year. The egg distributor must change its advertising on egg cartons and also pay a fine to cover the city's legal costs. Protecting patients on both sides of the border, a collaborative effort between San Diego County, Imperial County, and Baja California will focus on treating and preventing the spread of tuberculosis. Peggy Pico explains how the program works.
The number of people in San Diego County who have tuberculosis has dramatically declined in the past 20 years, with 220 cases reported last year. Still, the highest rate of TB cases in California are in Imperial County, and in Mexico, TB rates and numbers are highest in Baja. Joining me with what's being done to control the disease are my guests, Dr. Kathleen Moser with San Diego County's Health and Human Services, and Alana Ortez with International Community Foundation. And Dr. Moser, what is tuberculosis and how do you get it?
Right, tuberculosis is a bacterial illness that primarily affects the lungs, and it's transmitted, and the reason it's a public health entity is that it's transmitted from person to person through the air.
And you could transmit it and not know you have it, correct?
Many people transmit it before they're diagnosed, and that's really how it can take hold in a community.
Who's most vulnerable for getting TB?
There's a lot of groups in our community. We have people from where TB is more common, so immigrant groups, but also the elderly, because they were kids when TB was more prevalent. So the elderly, there are people who abuse drugs, people who have forms of immunocompromise from HIV, but even people with diabetes are more at risk.
How is it treated?
It's treated with multiple antibiotics, so you start with 4 antibiotics at the same time. You take that for several months, and then the full course of treatment can be from 6 months to up to 2 years.
And is the treatment the same here in the U.S. as it is in Mexico, as it is in other countries?
Right, so the basic form of treatment is the same actually worldwide with those 4 drugs to start with.
Okay, so Alana, then what are the major challenges then in treating TB among people who live on both sides of the border or go often between Mexico and the U.S.?
So I work with a community foundation that works in the border region, and we have found that in the border region there's higher rates of a lot of illnesses because there are transient populations, because people are coming from other areas and bringing illnesses with them and spreading them. Also, we find that because there's poverty and at-risk populations for many different illnesses, that's one of the risks for tuberculosis as well.
And is it difficult to get a tuberculosis patient maybe who is in the border region to comply with treatment on both sides of the border?
Yeah, absolutely. So binational cases, what this agreement that we were celebrating in the past week is between the Imperial County, San Diego County, and the state of Baja California's health services, and our community foundation and a nonprofit called Puentes de Esperanza. And the reason we're all working together is because binational cases are very hard to treat, because there's so much movement and people aren't necessarily stable in one locale. And it really takes a lot of collaborating to work together to treat those cases.
Because I understand there's a lot of, you have to follow up on this treatment. It isn't just a one-time thing. It can take quite a while. Right. So, Dr. Moser, how is this collaboration actually tracking and helping these people get treatment?
Right. So, well, we're hoping the collaboration and the new agreement that we signed is going to help to strengthen and broaden the kind of strategies that we already have in place. So like you said, people go back and forth across the border. So we're hoping one of the things is that we're just going to have better communication, many partners that are making sure that people are remaining on their treatment.
And Alana, is technology helping with this? Is there some sort of way you guys share information?
Sure. I mean, using technology as simple as phone, video conferencing and teleconferencing, which is pretty simple technology, but that's really critical to get everyone communicating and talking to one another. And there is potentially in the future the opportunity to use additional technologies to help observe treatment for TB.
Well, it's important to track, though, right? Isn't that one of the most important things?
Well, I mean, for the individual who has active tuberculosis, you want to be sure that they're on treatment. There are one of the collaborations that we're hoping to broaden is actually with promotoras, that they would call them in Mexico. People who actually go and watch you take your medications every day. And it's not so much they track the person, but they keep on track with the person to make sure that they're taking their medications every day. And one of the strategies, the technology, is actually we're doing a lot of studies with this in San Diego County, working with UCSD really, where we're actually having people videotape themselves taking their medications and sending it in. Oh. And now we're using, with another UCSD researcher, using ingestible sensors.
That makes sure that you follow up. So a little bit of...
And those can be used across the border as well.
Okay, sure. So much to talk about this. Dr. Kathleen Moser and Alana Ortez, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Under the microscope, the use of force by law enforcement, deadly police shootings sparking protests in San Diego and across the country. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Minto shows us a technique that could be a critical tool when situations escalate.
Inside the gym at a local Jewish community center, students are kicking, punching, and placing each other in headlocks. This is Krav Maga. You might have heard of it before on the popular TV show How I Met Your Mother.
Better run. I have my Krav Maga class in half an hour.
Krav Maga. How cool is it that she does Krav Maga?
Thanks, honey. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Dude, what's Krav Maga? I have no idea. Some kind of yoga?
Krav Maga is not yoga. It's a hand-to-hand street fighting system formerly developed for the Israeli military that's often taught in the U.S. as a self-defense class.
I might have to step out and punch. It's the same move. My hands come up, I'm stepping out, I'm punching.
That's Dana Ben Kaplan, the lead instructor at Krav Maga San Diego.
Give yourselves a hand, guys. Nice work.
He teaches men, women, teens, and seniors how to break free from multiple attackers or escape a fight in the ocean. But Kaplan's real-life training scenarios aren't just tailored to the average citizen. Hidden alongside his students are law enforcement officers.
12 years Department of Justice, federal law enforcement. I've got personnel from U.S. Secret Service, local law enforcement, of course, San Diego PD, San Diego County Sheriffs, Border Patrol, Immigration Customs Enforcement, Department of Homeland Security.
Bang, bang. Get on target. Nice.
They're seeking outside instructors like Kaplan to boost their defensive tactics training.
You can throw some kicks, some punches.
He says he attended a course in Israel to teach Krav Maga to law enforcement, and he offers monthly classes only for them.
I heard a click. Once I get at least one click, I'm good.
Kaplan says Krav Maga is the best fighting system for law enforcement officers. In part because it gives them options in situations that would have them reaching for their gun.
Draw!
He calls this the gray area.
The gray area is the in-between between shooting and fighting. Because it's easy for a law enforcement agency to teach officers how to shoot. You can go to a range. It's easy to teach them how to fight, put them in a padded room, put some boxing gloves and headgear on. But that gray area is not really covered.
His style of Krav Maga teaches officers how to respond to highly stressful situations.
Hey, weapon, get down.
Like ordering unruly subjects to the ground.
Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Get down on the ground.
And we'll go in a mat room and we'll gear up and we'll fight. We'll fight with weapons and we'll do impact weapon training. We'll do weapon retention training, long gun, handgun, weapons training on the ground, all kinds of stuff that they might not have time for in their academy.
And redirect that gun. Okay, so
District investigator and lead defensive tactics instructor Luis Rudisill says Krav Maga is an additional tool officers can rely on when facing a suspect that's wielding a sharp weapon.
Training knives, if the suspect's within 21 feet of that range, it's encouraged and actually taught that, you don't have enough time to try to disarm him before he can actually harm you. So you immediately reach for lethal force.
But he says officers don't always have to immediately turn to their firearm.
Here it is right here. With Krav Maga, training in those type of techniques, we have found that you can actually defend an attack and still be able to get to your options if you choose to go to deadly force. Sometimes you don't have to do that.
But not every law enforcement agency in San Diego emphasizes Krav Maga like he does. Captain Brian Ahern with the San Diego Police Department says the agency's defensive tactics curriculum comes from a variety of fighting styles.
We don't cite any one particular or rely on one or integrate
elements of any specific self-defense programs. It's more of a universal style that you would see most likely in most programs.
Ahern says the department's training curriculum meets the high standards set by the State Police Training Board. But officers can still attend classes on their own time and dollar, like Kaplan's. But just because they can train in it doesn't mean they can use it on the job.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, any application of force must be reasonable, and it's got to be within department procedure.
Late at night at Kaplan's monthly law enforcement and military classes, a mix of Marines, sailors, and law enforcement officers practiced arresting each other using a takedown technique.
And secure this wrist and take him down.
Not all of the 8 students would appear on camera because of security reasons, so we interviewed them about their training by a show of hands.
How many of you feel more efficient in your job after training in Krav Maga?
All of their hands went up. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Okay, sorry, are those cuffs too tight?
No.
Follow me. Right this way.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.